They served in secrecy.
When I worked out there, I could not tell my family nothing.
But it's no secret the mission behind the curtain at Savannah River site was to weaken the Iron Curtain. Thousands in our area answer the call to fight the Soviet Union, not by firing weapons, but by helping to make them. It cost many their health, others their lives.
And you're certain SRS is to blame?
The government said that his work caused his death.
Now, the government...
I've been denied 3 times, I believe it is already.
And I was denied in 2006.
could be breaking.
Well, I've been denied 3 times.
A big promise.
They said they would take care of it. What's the holdup? What's the deal?
That promise, money and medical benefits. Good afternoon, I'm Meredith Anderson. And for more than 6 months, I've been investigating how the government is giving the cold shoulder to some local Cold War veterans. Many who are sick and also sick of fighting and sick of waiting.
We was doing it to protect the country.
But Martin Renew now wonders if his country's government is protecting him.
Even considered not coming to sit down and talk to you about it.
It being cancer, prostate cancer. Cancer he believes he got from working at the Savannah River plant, as SRS was known back then.
The radiation's dangerous. Contamination's more dangerous.
He says he was exposed to both for more than 3 decades. And the government doesn't deny that he was. The Department of Labor isn't denying his cancer either. Instead, it's denying there's a link between the two.
Once you have prostate cancer,
You're going to lose your sex life.
it creates a problem for you and your wife.
I mean, we weren't that old.
June Renew says she was certain her husband would be approved the first time he applied for benefits under the Energy Employees Occupational Illness Compensation Act. President Clinton signed it into law back in 2000. It allows nuclear workers who became sick as a result of radiation exposure on the job up to $400,000. And on top of that, medical benefits. The Renews had no idea until one of Mr. Renew's former co-workers told him about it.
What good's it going to do for me to go ahead and try to file for prostate cancer? He said, man, they sent me a check for $180,000. I said, you what?
What they did was file. The first denial came in August of 2004.
I felt a little bit angry.
November 2004, denied again.
And I was denied in 2006.
Not once, but twice.
It just hurt me when they wouldn't give him what I thought he deserved.
Then in 2007, the Renews had renewed hope because of this letter. The Department of Labor admitted to leaving a type of plutonium at SRS off the list when calculating exposure. He was already so close. According to the law, he didn't have to prove his cancer was caused by radiation. He only had to prove a 50% chance that it was caused by radiation. Before, his numbers had been around 36%. Surely, he thought, this would push him over the 50% line. March 2009, he gets a letter. 37.01% denied. Again.
I mean, you think, okay, he's got this much wrong with him. They said they would take care of it. What's the holdup? What's the deal? I don't know.
So many cases of cancer popped up at SRS. It's been given special status to make it quicker and easier for workers to get benefits. Anyone who worked there at least 250 days between 1953 and 1972 just needs to show they've been diagnosed with one of 22 listed cancers. The government doesn't calculate and require a set percentage like it did for Mr. Renew. Payment is automatic. Prostate cancer isn't on that list. That's because cancer experts say there's not a documented link between prostate cancer and radiation. Apparently, there is one between prostate cancer and Agent Orange. Vietnam vets exposed to it got a check from the government. 9/11 first responders with prostate cancer are eligible for compensation too. That exposure is pretty well documented. Documentation of exposure at SRS? To say that's flawed is an understatement. First, applicants have to rely on the Department of Energy to provide proof of exposure, meaning the government gives the government the information used to decide if the government will hand over any money. Further tipping the scales in the government's favor, problems with the program itself. A report to Congress from March of this year points out those evaluating claims did not always run accurate searches. There's a database linking toxins to diseases. A decade ago, it listed 300. Now, it's more than 3,000. And get this, investigators found those examining claims are not always required to document that they checked if that list had been updated before approving or denying a claim.
When I worked out there, I could not tell my family nothing.
Which leads to another problem, the secrecy of SRS. Mr. Renew says exposing everything he was exposed to is a risk to national security.
When he made a promise not to tell,
He did not tell. He still, to this day, won't tell me anything. I mean, he keeps his word. That's one thing I admire about him.
After effects is still there with me. Probably have it with me until I die.
her father worked at SRS for years.
No, time does not help.
And this is like rubbing salt in it.
Oh, well, it's like getting hit upside the head with a 2x4.
The government isn't just breaking its promise to some SRS workers. It could also be breaking a promise to those left behind.
He was so cool, everybody loved my daddy.
And Sherry Floyd says her daddy loved everybody back.
Gosh, he must have taught the whole town how to water ski.
Laughter that turns to tears.
No, time does not help.
As she talks about her broken heart and what she believes is a broken promise.
I mean, how do you get over the person you love the most in your life? It's just not possible.
And then for the government to slam door after door in your face.
Well, I've been denied 3 times.
Denied under the Energy Employees Occupational Illness Compensation Program Act. Congress passed the law to help energy workers like Clyde Floyd, who were exposed to harmful radiation or contamination on the job. He spent 3 decades at Savannah River site.
The cancer was now in his lungs, and he had multiple brain tumors, and they said there wasn't anything they could do for him.
Maybe doctors couldn't, but the government could have. SRS is what's known as a special cohort under the EEOICPA. It puts those with an approved illness on the fast track for approval if they worked at SRS between 1953 and 1972. Mr. Floyd was there for all but 2 of those years.
Daddy was still alive. I said, Daddy, you've got to apply for this.
If approved, he could have received up to $400,000 plus medical benefits, but he never got the chance. Clyde Floyd passed away in May of 2001.
And you're certain SRS is to blame?
The government said that his work caused his death.
It's something the government is saying more often and to more people than expected.
I do believe there has been a surprise that maybe more people were exposed than what we originally thought, as well as that more people have illnesses arising from those exposures.
That's Malcolm Nelson. He's the ombudsman for the EEOICPA. And from what we've found, that surprise is a bit of an understatement. Buried in a Senate hearing more than a decade old, we uncovered a cost estimate for the program before it became law in 2000. The then Secretary of Energy suggested it would cost $120 million a year for the first 3 years, but then rapidly decline after that. Nope, not even close. As of this month, it's more than $13 billion, and that's just in claims and medical bills. It doesn't even count what it costs to run the program. According to the 2016 budget, that's at least $133 million this year alone. So it makes you wonder, is this a reason 70% of SRS claims are denied? We asked Mr. Nelson.
The money comes out of the Treasury, and I've been assured that there's no consideration on money in determining claims.
But Sherry says there seems to be little consideration of the applicants.
My denial letter went to an old address, and I didn't get the letter until after I missed the 30-day deadline to appeal.
A government investigation from earlier this year found similar examples, like this one that caused a claim to be delayed because of an incorrect address for a district office, and the district office not responding to 2 requests to reopen denied claims.
And it was to honor the workers, but what they're doing is dragging them through the mud of a pile of paperwork and 30-day deadlines.
Some, like Sherry's dad, became too sick.
There are people dying of cancer. They can't be expected to file something like this.
So they can hire anyone. They're limited to 2%.
That includes lawyers and people like Sherry who file on behalf of those seeking compensation.
All I know is what I keep reading in these claims, and I see a pattern.
Like the special cohort dates, for example. I've seen it on claims, too, where the worker would have been approved, no question, if they were there in the 70s instead of the 80s.
All because it turned 1973 didn't mean all the contamination went poof. It's all gone. No, they're still removing all the stuff.
Why do you think they won't include those dates? Is it because it would just mean more approvals and
Oh,
suddenly...
yeah. They'd have to pay more people.
They'd also have to pay people more if they sped up the process. An approved claim pays more for the person with the illness. Survivors don't get the full amount. We asked Mr. Nelson if that's a way to save money.
They do realize that if the worker passes away before that money is paid, it could affect the amount of compensation that is paid.
Sherry ended up with nothing. She was denied. Some other family members were approved, but she says it's not about the money. It's about a flawed program.
Getting $150,000 is not worth my daddy's life. Is that all he was worth? No.
Right now, there's a petition making its way through the system, extending the years of the special cohort. I asked the head of the program about this, and he said, yes, it's on his radar. It's now on mine, too. A former truck driver at SRS also has his eye on it.
This part of my nose right here is plastic surgery. There's no meat in there at all.
His claim was denied, but you'll never believe where we found one just like it that was approved.
I've seen some stuff out there that, now some of that stuff I wouldn't do again.
Joseph Keenan is happy to be in this seat instead of a driver's seat.
I didn't realize that place was 310 square miles until I went to work there. That's a lot of acreage.
And as a truck driver, he logged a lot of hours,
34 years.
driving a lot of that acreage. He wouldn't tell me what he hauled at SRS, but he would say this.
The beds of the trucks had to be lead lined, so that could give you some idea of what's taking place there.
Meanwhile, Mr. Keenan said he had no idea
I've had 3 skin cancers removed.
what was taking place in his own body.
This part of my nose right here is plastic surgery. There's no meat in there at all. And then right up in my eye, corner of my eye, I had another one, and on my ear, I had to have another one removed.
He also had a cyst on his neck, a deteriorating spinal system, and a lump in his lung causing COPD-like problems. He believes all are a result of working all those years at SRS.
According to my heart doctor the other day, that it's not going to get any better.
Lately, neither has his faith in the government he served. That's because he believes the government owes him some money, and quite a bit. Under the Energy Employees Occupational Illness Compensation Program Act, workers at DOE sites like SRS would be compensated in the event they got sick because of what they were exposed to on the job. Its mission statement on the Department of Labor's website promises timely, appropriate, and accurate decisions and prompt payment. But for Mr. Keenan, the process has been anything but prompt. Here's his application from back in 2001.
I've been denied 3 times, I believe it is already.
Even though he's had skin cancer 3 times. According to this, a man working as a scientist at SRS had his application accepted for basal cell carcinoma on his arm. Mr. Keenan had it on his eye and his nose. His ear, a squamous cell carcinoma. The man who got his claim accepted isn't just any example, by the way. He's an example for the Department of Labor taken right out of its policy and procedure manual.
I know many of you think the government doesn't work.
That's the head of the program, Malcolm Nelson. He traveled from D.C. to Aiken to meet with Cold War Patriots like Mr. Keenan.
I do understand that there are people who are frustrated. I understand that frustration.
Frustration because of how long this process can take, even though Nelson was happy to tell us he's seeing claims resolved in under a year now. But some SRS workers are waiting years. Mr. Keenan's been dealing with this for 15 years.
Unfortunately, we know there are other cases that don't go that quickly.
His suggestion? Keep applying.
I have found that persistence works with this program.
But appeals can only make the process longer. And then there's this. You can reapply with a new illness. But by then, some are too busy fighting cancer to keep fighting the government.
Somebody's eyes need to be opened up. I don't know what it is.
That's unacceptable.
And up next, our investigation is opening some eyes all the way in Washington.
That you brought that to my attention. This shall be addressed.
Congressman Joe Wilson going on the record after an on-your-side investigation exposes problems with a law supposedly helping Cold War veterans exposed to radiation.
We want to make sure that nobody falls through the cracks.
And we sure found a lot of cracks in the Energy Employees Occupational Illness Compensation Program. Cracks that have now become major faults.
That's unacceptable.
Congressman Wilson was in D.C. when he saw our report, not at home in his district that's home to SRS. It's also home to tens of thousands of SRS retirees in Aiken, Allendale, Barnwell, and Orangeburg counties.
That provided for our peace and security, and they were successful. And so we owe this to the persons who've worked there.
As for how the law is supposed to help energy workers, Congressman Wilson should know quite a bit about that. He's a member of the House Committee on Education and the Workforce, and the Subcommittee on Health, Employment, Labor, and Pensions. Both have oversight of the EEOICPA. In our report, we pointed out those who worked at SRS during the 1950s, 60s, and 70s are part of a special group who can get on the fast track for benefits if they have one of 22 specified cancers. We were surprised to see prostate cancer isn't on the list. And so was Congressman Wilson.
Of all that this is quite a surprise that you brought this to me, because this truly is something that should be covered.
But to get it covered would take an act of Congress. The list is part of the statute, meaning it can only be modified by Congress.
I'll be working with both Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator Tim Scott. It would be a team effort on our part to make sure that this is corrected.
Since that interview, we have followed up with Congressman Wilson. His D.C. office tells me he is working on a bill that would make changes to the program. He wants it in front of Congress this year. And Congressman Wilson says he'll sit down with me to talk about those changes. We're hoping that can happen sometime this month. Now, in the meantime, you can call his Aiken office for help. They can't file or process your claim, but they can review it and ask questions on your behalf. We want to give you a chance to grab a pen and paper to write that number down. I've gotten so many calls from retirees who are not comfortable going online to get this info. So we're back in about 2 minutes with that and some other ways you can get help. Martin Renew, Clyde Floyd, Joseph Keenan. They are just 3 of the thousands in our area who have either filed claims or had a claim filed on their behalf. And while we've uncovered flaws in the claims process and maybe in the law itself, some in our area have received compensation. I recently got a call from a man in tears who wanted to thank us for our help. He just received a check for $50,000. His father died of cancer and worked at SRS. The government has paid out almost $1 billion to former SRS workers and their families since the law was passed. So if you could qualify, it is important that you get your name in the system. If you're denied, you can always appeal, and if you're diagnosed with a new illness, you can always file a new claim. And with Congressman Wilson's promise to try to change the law, there could be some other changes to help you too. There are so many resources online, and we've posted them for you on WRDW.com. Congressman Wilson's Aiken staff can go a step further. Again, they cannot accept, file or process a claim for you, but they can review your claim and ask questions on your behalf. The program's ombudsman also asked me to pass along contact info for his office, too. That's also posted on WRDW.com.